Well, tonight I'm going to show you how to photograph your Instax film. As opposed to scanning it in with a scanner, I prefer to use the camera. Which, if you have a camera that can shoot in RAW, can be very beneficial to helping you process your photographs. You can do just a bit more, or a lot more actually, with the RAW file. But I'm actually just going to do JPEG, it's all I need, it's fine. So here we go. Now the trick is all about lighting here, and how you set up how you're going to shoot these. So I have chosen a brick. This is just a brick. And what I've done is I've sat it on top of a black t-shirt on the floor. So the black t-shirt is just going to give me a black background. It's pretty simple. So why the brick? It's nice and heavy, which is nice to work with. It's not going to move around accidentally too easily. It's also the right dimensions for what I'm photographing. The Instax picture overhangs. So I can shoot just the picture, not the brick. The brick raises it from the background, meaning if I focus here, everything back here, if it were to be seen, would be totally out of focus anyway, and that would help soften it out and get rid of it. But anyway, I'm going to arrange my lights. I'm just using a single light to keep it simple. This is a nice little cheap light from Walmart. I like it because it has this diffused cell. It's already a little bit diffused right off the bat, although it's better if it's further away. I'm getting the angles just right. Now we do want to keep this light from hitting the shirt. So nice lights have these, for photography, have these bendy panels so you can direct things. I just have duct tape, which you should always keep in your bag anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to duct tape around the bottom lip there just so that the light still gets to the film fine, but is not hitting the shirt as much. It already looks fine in my camera, but this is just like an extra precaution to take a little more light off of that shirt from my hot light here. And this focuses the light a little more on the film as well. So now the shirt is a little darker. I also don't want the light to come up this way into the camera I'm shooting with, because it's right above it. So to prevent that, I'm just going to set a felt bag over top of it and make sure it's out of frame here. So I'm actually needing to zoom in a little bit on my camera here to frame in nice and tight on it. So like I said, another nice thing about the brick is that I can look through my viewfinder, and instead of moving the camera and tripod around, I like to keep it locked in nice and tight so nothing's going to move on me. And I can just slightly nudge the brick around to get it to where I want it in frame. And having a nice heavy object as your base helps out with that. You can just do nice little nudges, and you're not accidentally going to move it around. Yeah, so here we go. Now I'm going to finish adjusting this felt bag. So that's just out of the field of view here. But what it's doing is preventing any light coming directly from my hot light into the camera lens. That will take down your contrast levels, even the slightest bit of it. And I'm also going to turn off this light I'm using to film with, the lightning. Might as well just leave it off, it's not doing much anyway. Okay, so more about lights. You can use more than one light from this side. That would probably be really nice to have another one of these right here. I just don't have it right now. Which is, if you buy a light, get a bunch of them. Especially this one, it's only $6. I don't know why I don't have them with me. An important note though is the reason I can't use this other lamp over here is because this is at a different color temperature, the other lamp. So the two lamps at different color temperatures, it can get a little complicated making them work together. It's good to stick with one. So if you're going to use house lamps, make sure they're all the same exact color temperature, i.e. make sure they're all the same light bulb, same diffusion. No, not so much the diffusion, but the color temperature has to be the same to get good, consistent, predictable results and be able to manipulate your camera to get the right color temperature you want out of it. Alright, so let's talk about camera modes here. I'll just bring this up so you can see what I'm talking about. You'll also notice I put a little isolator on top of the screen here. That really helps with having zero interference and getting a nice close look at what you're doing. But maybe it's better to film with that off, I don't know. There's no great way to film my screen, unfortunately. So you can see I've got the meter on here so I can see what I'm doing. Mode wise, you can use manual. Really, it's with everything still you can as long as there aren't a lot of out of focus elements in your picture. Well, no, the autofocus should work anyway in any condition. But what I'm using is this interesting mode on my Sony, which is it's kind of a manual mode that has an assistance. So you kind of guide it roughly, and then set it that way. But it will still, you can see those green squares there, it's locking on to subjects. So it has the idea of where you want to go, and it just fine-tunes your focus just to make sure that it's as accurate as it can go. Because the screen, unfortunately, is not the full resolution of the image itself. So its programming can tell better than you can through the screen whether it's in focus or not. It's just how these cameras are. ISO all the way down. You really shouldn't have it higher than its lowest. There's no reason for that. Well, no, I mean, there's a reason why you shouldn't, and that's because high ISO is just going to give you grain and all that. So lowest is going to be best. Your f-stop, also the lowest. There's not really a reason for this that I can think of that you would really need to crank that up. Lower's gonna be fine. The best reason I would say it could be lower f-stop is that it's going to allow you to take faster pictures. This prevents any moving around that could possibly happen, which shouldn't because everything is stabilized. But it should be faster workflow as well. And now we're going to pick our exposure. And you can see that you could actually have room to play here. But with the Instax film, I've been noticing that I prefer to put my exposure a little higher than I would have thought would be okay. And see, on the meter here, this meter is going to give you a funny reading if you're including the frame in your shot. It'd be totally different if I went in here, because there's not that big bright white frame. That throws things off a bit. But it's kind of part of shooting this film is getting that frame in there, kind of just as a sort of a proof that you shot it on that medium. It's a little bit silly. You could also just plain crop down to the film itself and try to get just the image. But what I'm going to do tonight is do one shot with the frame and one without. I'm going to try that out. Exposure bracketing could help here as well. just because, like I said, there is room to play with the exposure here, and having the option of picking from a few different exposures can be great afterwards, because you don't want to get on the computer and realize, man, I could have exposed this more or less, and you gotta set all this stuff up again. It's not very fun. It really is a lot of work, especially when you've got a lot of film to shoot. I guess that pretty much covers everything that I can think of. Just a few hints. It's all about having that lighting set up and isolating and controlling the environment, controlling your light. You can see I have this set up. You see I have these clips. You should always be prepared with things like that. I keep clips in my bag. Probably would help if I had a black tripod, just so there's no reflection coming off of that, but it won't be an issue here. Another thing is, if there is light coming from the ceiling, that could be an issue. Or if there's light hitting the camera too much, that's an issue, because these are things that can reflect. This film is very reflective. It's got a very glossy sheen on the film, and that means it picks up reflections very easily. And so if there's any light hitting the camera or from behind you, that can be an issue. And then in that case, you can get some foam board, some black foam board, cut a hole in it so that it goes around your lens and just blocks everything out. That way there's no shadows or highlights to reflect within the film. And you can also just, like, if there's light above you, you can just hold this over the entire thing as you shoot. Alright.